Welcome to Behind the Mic with Kirkus Reviews, where the subjects are audiobooks and the actors who narrate them. I'm Jo Reed, and I'm so happy to be joined by contributor Kendra Winchester. Hi, Kendra. How have you been?
I'm doing well. Hi, Joe. I'm so excited to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well because it's a beautiful day out, and I had a long walk with my dog listening to one of the wonderful audiobooks I know you're going to be talking about. So it's been a good day so far, bound to get better.
We always love an audiobook
I
walk.
know,
Yeah.
always. Share with our listeners the three books we're going to discuss.
Right. So today we are tackling short stories, which I always love to listen to on audio. So the three books we're going to talk about today are Fat Swim Fiction by Emma Copley Eisenberg, and that has a multicast of performers, which is fabulous. My Dear You, Stories by Rachel Khong, performed by Xiaoling Pan, Rachel Khong, Zhen Zhao, and Annie Q. Riegel, and Seasons of Glass and Iron, Stories by Amal El-Mohtar, performed by Rachel Elizabeth Smith.
All right, so we're beginning with Fat Swim Fiction by Emma Copley Eisenberg, which has gotten really a lot of buzz.
Yes, I love to see it. I have loved Emma's work for a long time, and so I was greatly anticipating this short story collection. So when I heard that it was going to have a multicast, I was just so thrilled because that's some of my favorite short story collections to listen to.
I know there are 7 narrators. Let's give them their flowers. Who are they?
So this is performed by Kristen D. Mercurio, M.W. Cartosian Wilson, Marin Ireland, Lindsay Dorcas, Chrysanthi Belize, Samantha Desz, and Kristen C.
Now tell me why you like to listen to short stories.
I am always running around and doing all sorts of things, and short stories are a way to really just get in a quick lesson, but it's a full beginning and ending kind of listening experience. And so I really love that. But one of the challenges is if I am doing something for a longer period of time, sometimes for me, a single narrator, you can struggle to figure out when one story ends and one begins. But with a multicast, you have a different voice performing the next story. So it really helps you follow along more easily.
I agree. The ensemble structure really feels especially important in a collection like this, where the stories move across different perspectives, different bodies, identity, emotional registers. Was there a particular performance that sharpened the emotional or thematic contrast between the stories for you?
I love Marin Ireland. I think that anything that she performs is going to be fabulous. And so, when I saw that she was going to be on this particular short story collection, I was so excited. And she performs the title story, Fat Swim, which was one of my favorite short stories.
And are there themes or ideas that run through this collection?
Yes, a big one of this is that there is fat representation throughout the short story collection. You have, a wide range of bodies represented for the characters, but in particular, fat characters of all ages just living in the world, existing. And I think that's just, it's so needed. It's something that we really don't talk about enough in literature and in broader society. So to see characters like that on the page was just really lovely to read.
And all these stories are also set in Philly. How prominent a character is Philadelphia?
It is. The through line of a lot of these short stories is the setting. And I think it's such a love letter to the city. It is where Emma Copley Eisenberg lives. And so, it was just so lovely. And I imagine if you live in Philadelphia, you're going to recognize so many places and really see your community represented.
Do you think that the audiobook format heightened the vulnerability of these characters since, we're hearing them inside our own ears. We're hearing their voices and thought patterns.
I think definitely so. In Fat Swim, we have an 8-year-old, a young girl. She's made fun of a lot because she is fat, and she just really is really struggling with that. So is her father. And so she just does not feel great about her life and about her body. She doesn't see herself represented, but then she comes across a group of fat women who go swimming, and they're wearing bathing suits and they are just enjoying their lives. And she is just drawn to these women. She's never seen herself represented in that way before. These women are confident and happy, and it is just a beautiful story of this young girl, and that's why it's one of my favorites.
I really love Marin Ireland's performance in Fat Swim because it captures both the wonder and longing in Alice's observation of these women at the pool. And we understand our understanding of fatness not as spectacle or shame, but it becomes actually possibility and community.
Yes, absolutely. And that emotional quality of the story, Ireland does so well with.
Well, why don't we hear a little bit from Marin Ireland?
All right, so this is part of Fat Swim that we're going to be listening to, and we're going to be in the perspective of Alice, who is an 8-year-old girl.
This is an excerpt from Fat Swim, fiction by Emma Copley Eisenberg. It's performed by a multicast, and we'll be hearing from Marin Ireland.
The public pool is on Alice's Avenue in West Philadelphia, which has many trees and a lot of garbage. The sidewalks are cracked, but the parking is permit only. The old woman who lives in the purple house is the captain, and she is efficient. From the top of Alice's stoop, she can clearly see the women across the street and through the chain-link fence. The women are fat, and they are swimming. Well, they are about to swim. They are taking off their jean shorts and belly shirts and fringe vests and heart-shaped sunglasses and putting their hair up into ponytails, or, if they have short hair, pressing both of their hands onto their heads like a hat, a dance move. A song is playing from a radio that is attached to the motorbike of the boy who lives in the purple house. The song is a hip-hop song that has been playing all summer and even before that, in the weeks when the kids at school believed it should have been summer vacation, but it was not. And the air conditioners were working at home, but not at school. The fat women are black and they are white, a thing that almost never happens in this neighborhood.
I think Marin's narration is especially effective because she never pushes for sentimentality, ever. And I think in Fat Swim, she lets Alice's curiosity and longing emerge naturally through very small shifts in tone and pacing, which makes the emotional impact of the story feel really authentic and earned.
It definitely does, and I think you captured it really well. Those small, very subtle shifts. It doesn't take a big performance. Ireland's always very subtle, and I think that really shines through, and it just creates a wonderful listening experience.
Is there another story that you want to talk about?
Yes, I loved Beauty as well. This is performed by Samantha Desz. And this is about a woman who used to work in the beauty industry. She used to be thin, and now she is fat and really struggling with that. So, first, in a way that kind of is cathartic, she starts filming herself putting on makeup and posting it online. And she, gets a little bit of a following. And someone emails her and says, that they will basically pay for her to create more content, and then begins chatting with her online. And this young and seems to be a young person. And so this is a very complex relationship that the protagonist is navigating, and it gets very sticky very quickly.
Yeah, I really liked her performance very much in this. And the story itself, online performance and self-presentation becomes so emotionally fraught. And I thought Samantha really captured that instability beautifully.
Yes, for sure. And it just really stayed in my mind. I think a great performance stays with you. And I just kept thinking about different scenes from the short story, and it was just so incredibly done. And I can't remember if I've ever listened to Samantha Desz's performance before, so I will definitely be keeping out an eye for her.
Yeah, she's new for me, and that's fabulous. So another thing that I find really lovely about multicast productions is that you can have veterans like Marin Ireland, who has many, many audiobooks under her belt, and be introduced to a new narrator. I mean, new to me and new to you in any case, like Samantha.
Yes, yes, I always love discovering new to me narrators, and like you said, multicast is perfect for that. And there are other great performers on this audiobook, so there'll be lots of new features for people to discover.
And we're moving along to your next choice, which is My Dear You by Rachel Khong. And this is also a multicast, though a smaller one.
Yes, this is performed by Xiaoling Pan, Rachel Khong, Zhen Zhao, and Annie Q. Riegel. And this is like a fantastical literary fiction short story collection that I was so delighted and surprised by.
I thought what made this collection especially effective in audio is the way the narrators move seamlessly between speculative fiction and emotional realism and satire and just plain absurdity,
Absolutely.
which was just delightful.
It was. You never knew what you were going to get next. And that was just something I adored about this collection. And the reviewer did as well. This is an Earphones Award winner. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and I love that Rachel Khong's interest in futures, plural, seem both impossible and uncomfortably close at the same time.
Yes. Oh my goodness. There's so many different ways that the Earth's future is, and sometimes even the afterlife is represented. And you can see all these different ways that it could go. And I love how, Kong tackled the same topic from different angles over and over again.
Talk a little bit about Rachel's own narration of D-Day. I'm very curious what you thought of it.
I really enjoyed it. D-Day was one of my favorite stories. It's a setup where God has decided that humanity is so terrible that they would now all be turned into animals, and every person has to decide what animal they want to be by a certain day, so D-Day. And so two friends are moving through the world at like the end of humanity trying to decide what animal they want to be. And I was just engrossed by this story, and when it was over, I looked up who performed this particular story, and it was Rachel Khong. I was like, wow, like, great job. Like, not all authors, as we've talked about, can perform their own stories, but I think Khong did such a great job.
I completely agree with that. She gave the story almost a mythic quality.
Yes, I love the fable, like fairy tale
Oh,
quality to it, like you mentioned, and it just drew me in. I love fairy tales and fables.
me too.
They're just, oh, they're so good.
We're going to hear a sample, and that is narrated by Annie Q. Riegel, who actually we just talked about. She narrated When Tomorrow Burns. We discussed it on the show a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And she's an actress who's in the series The Leftovers, and I loved her narration of When Tomorrow Burns, and I loved her narrations in this book too. She wrote a few stories.
Yes, it is fantastic, and this part that we're about to hear is a woman has died and just arrived in heaven, and she's kind of getting oriented to her new existence in heaven and what that in the afterlife and what that's going to be like, and it definitely takes an interesting direction.
This is the title story, My Dear One, that Annie Q. Riegel is narrating, and the collection is written by Rachel Khong.
Crocodile tears are insincere tears because crocodiles cry when devouring their prey. Did this one cry when it ate me? They told me yes, because that's just what their glands do. How old was it? They told me 70, meaning that this crocodile outlived me by 40 years, which I didn't know whether to feel happy or sad about. Was it a male or a female? They told me a female. So really, I got my life ended by an old crocodile bitch, though they're not called bitches, but cows. I asked Richard how much time I had to mull over the face and body parts they were permitting me to do over. He said 24 hours, but that heaven hours worked a little differently. Why? Do you need an extension? He said, without inflection. I said no, it was okay. Richard had been so patient and accommodating with the questions I'd had so far, I didn't really want to impose further.
Annie does such a great job of conveying the perplexity and the wonder of this situation, and, kind of good at throwing some snark in too, right?
Yes.
She has such an elasticity to her voice. She can sound warm and reassuring one moment and kind of uncanny the next. And it just suits Khong's blend of, sort of emotional realism and speculative unease, if that even makes sense.
Exactly. Exactly. There's just something just so good about it. And it gets kind of ridiculous like later on in the story. And she captures that really well. So I just loved it.
I did as well. And you also liked The Family O. Tell us briefly about that story and the narrator.
The Family O is this story I was swept up by. We have an Asian American woman who has a terrible date with a guy, and she then runs into this group of other Asian American women, and she ends up hanging out with them, and she discovers very quickly that they have experienced this weird situation where they've gone dates on with the same white guy who goes on the exact same date with them and is really fetishizing them, and so they decide to seek revenge.
It really is an extraordinary story, I thought. And I really liked Zhen Zhao's performance because there's a balance in this story of very sharp humor with anger simmering right beneath it. And I thought her pacing and vocal control really maintained that tension.
Yes, absolutely. And you're really on the edge of your seat because stuff happens very quickly and you're following along and you're wondering where this is going, and it's so good. And I think it's another one of those stories that really stayed in my mind. I keep thinking about like the guy would buy on the first date, he would buy each one of these women a particular fish. And so that they reveal like all the fish that he's given these women in a single tank, and it's just like a beautiful, like creepy moment. And I'm just like, what is going on? And so that's like the uncanny that is captured in this collection. Just each story is so different.
And now we move to your third and final book, Season of Glass and Iron by Amal El-Mohtar. And that's narrated by Rachel Elizabeth Smith. I have to say, out of your three this week, this was my favorite. I loved this.
It's so good. I never read the author before in any and first audiobook as well, and I never listened to Rachel Elizabeth Smith before,
I
and
never had
she's
either. Oh my
she's
God, I
so
loved
fantastic. I
it. Yeah,
looked her up and I was like, you only have 5 credits.
it's amazing. I did too. I was like, why don't I know you?
And I was so delighted with this short story collection as a blend of science fiction and fantasy short stories. And many people might know the author from This Is How to Lose a Time War, which went viral on TikTok.
And she also wrote The River Has Roots.
Yes. And so, she's very good at short fiction. Those were novellas. And so this is her first collection of short fiction. And one of the things about this collection is they were all written for different things, different anthologies, different publications. But the through line in all of these short stories is women. And in the introduction, the author talks about how much she realized she loved women by rereading these stories and getting them ready for this book.
I loved that introduction. I really am so happy that I listened to it. It was so thoughtful. I thought it gave me insight into the author and into the framing of this book. It was wonderful.
Yes, and I love context. For me, that's always something I like to look into. So when I research audiobooks and different things, I go searching for that information. So the fact that she had it right in the front of the collection was so helpful, and that made me really pay attention to the themes that she mentioned throughout the short stories.
What I also liked about it, the whole book, but also the story, Seasons of Glass and Iron, the short story itself, it really stood out for me because I thought it really overturned the logic of the traditional fairy tale.
Yes, in a lot of fairy tales, there is, a woman in distress who needs rescuing. But this is like a fairy tale, but these two women meet and they sit and they find comfort in one another and they tell each other stories, and they really aspire to rescue themselves from these men that are, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but they're not great. They're not great men. And so they really strive to save themselves. And that was just something really beautiful to listen to.
Yeah. And the other one that I thought was so good was the Green Book, which we're going to hear a sample from, because that is so concerned with the act of recording knowledge, what we preserve, what we hide, who gets remembered. And I really thought the audiobook format added another layer to that idea.
Yes, I think so. And I think book lovers will really appreciate it because there's that intertextuality about the short story. And it just reminded me of like working in the library when I was in college and all these discussions that we had about who's recording what and how history is recording, all these different things, like you said. And so it's kind of this, you're just reading this person writing down these thoughts and ideas, and we're really getting their perspective and their like limited viewpoint. And it was just really interesting.
And so unusual, so deeply unusual. Can we hear a little?
Yes. So this is just the beginning of the story where we have a woman who's chronicling her pursuits in the library, for lack of a better term.
This is Season of Glass and Iron by Amal El-Mohtar, and it's performed by Rachel Elizabeth Smith.
The book I am copying out is small, only 4 inches by 5. It is a vivid green, quite exactly the colour of sunlight through the oak leaves in the arbour, and just as mottled. Its cover is pulp wrapped in paper, and its pages are thick with needlethorn and something that smells of thyme. There are 6 different hands in evidence. The first, the invocation, is archaic. Large block letters with hardly any ornamentation. I place it during journey year 200 to 250, long did it wind, and it is written almost in green paste. I observe a grainy texture to the letters, though I dare not touch them. Sometimes the green of them is obscured by rust-brown stains that I suppose to be blood, given the circumstances that produced the second hand.
This is an amazingly detailed and visual description, and I thought it was narrated by Rachel Elizabeth Smith in almost an intimate way. I just found this so striking. And one thing I found striking about the story is how physical the scholarship feels in the story. You know, the journals, the research, the act of collecting and preserving knowledge. I mean, such an attention to objects and record keeping made it feel, I don't know, it's on one hand more fantastical and on the other hand, so grounded in physicality.
Yes. Yes. Like the senses are fully alive in this library, and you can almost feel the leather and see the faded covers, just all sorts of things like that. And it was delightful. I think any book lover will be drawn to the sensory qualities of this story. The narrator has so much subtlety to her performance, like we talked about
Oh,
before with Ireland's performance. And there's just something so good about every story. And we've talked about how sometimes when there's a one narrator, you can get confused as to when one story ends and another begins. But I did not feel that way with Smith's performance. I feel like
mm-mm.
she did such a great job of
Yes.
ending the story, creating that emotional quality to ending and then beginning the new story. And I just really appreciated that.
Oh, I did too. I loved this book. You had a really good week, but boy, this book just captivated me because I love fairy tales and fables. Even the science fiction-y ones still had that quality to them, I thought.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's something that is a joy, I think, about the author's work. And so I just have started going through, she only has 3 books out right now, but I've been going through the audiobooks, and so I have one left. And they're novellas as well. So it's like they're all very short. So I'm just savoring as I go through.
And I discovered another new narrator, Rachel Elizabeth Smith. I will read anything this woman reads.
Absolutely. We could just add her to our favorites list. And
For sure. Kendra, thank you. Thank you so much. This was really an interesting week for you and for me. I appreciate it.
of course, always happy to chat audiobooks.
Always happy to talk with you too. I'll talk to you next month and pat your doggies for me.
I will.
Behind the Mic is brought to you by Tommy Nelson Books, publisher of Operation Trickshot, written and narrated by YouTube sensation Dude Perfect. This fast-paced, hilarious middle school adventure story is the perfect gift for motivating your tween to pick up a book this summer. available everywhere you get your audiobooks. Behind the Mic drops on Thursdays. Follow us. We will appear in your feed. And then, while you're at it, follow Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. Fully Booked is the podcast for book lovers. Every Tuesday, host Megan Labrise brings you author interviews, industry insights, and recommendations from the bestseller list. Find your next great book on Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. You can follow Fully Booked and Behind the Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to stop by kirkusreviews.com to check out reviews for both print and audiobooks. Behind the Mic is produced by Jessica Lockhart. Michelle Cobb, Stephen Cummings, Leslie Fine, Alan Minskoff, Alex Ritchie, Laura Rossi, Laura Simeon, and Kendra Winchester are our contributors. Jennifer Dell is our editor, with assistance from Alicia Langerman. Tom Beer is the executive producer. The music is William Ross Chernoff's Nomad's Four-Way. And I'm your host, Joe Reed. Good listening.